What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with reactions to the classics. Today we got a reaction to Creeper and their album Sanguivore, brought to us by friend, longtime supporter, patron of the channel, River. Thank you, River. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below or the patron link on the end screen. We could not do it without our patrons. All right, I never even heard of Creeper. I had to look up how to say Sanguivore, but hey, one thing I like about reacting to brand new albums, or newer albums, I'll tell you when this came out in just a minute, is there's a ton of material. I read 9 different articles or reviews of this album, so I feel like I know this album. But if you haven't been with us before, the music will not be in the video, but it'll be a Vimeo link below. So just click on that right now if you want to watch the music. You can watch a whole reaction. This was River's 2023 album of the year, and River knows a ton about music, so that's a big statement. Let's get into some backgrounds. I edited all my information down. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk to you forever, but I know a lot. I feel like I already know these songs, and I know this album. But third studio album by the English rock goth punk band Creeper. They're everything. I've seen them described as everything. I saw their last album was almost described as Americana, which I can't believe. Produced by Tom Dagley, which we'll get into more in a minute. Released on October 13, 2013 as the group's first album on Spine Farm Records. 29 in the UK, 10 in Scotland. Recorded at the legendary Rockfield Studios in the same exact room as Queen recorded Bohemian Rhapsody. I just thought that was a cool story. Its concept for the album, based around vampires, was inspired by the end of the COVID-19 lockdown in the UK and the return of live music. Will Gold, who is the lead singer, explained in an interview with Rolling Stone that both are about, quote, breathing new life into an old body and falling back in love. An interview with Kerrang! Just after the album's announcement, Will explained that, quote, we'd always planned to do a vampire record. We've been thinking about it for a couple of years and knew that now was a good place to go after where the last one left off. We wanted to make something darker than we'd ever made before. What's the album about? It's a little bit of concept album here. Narratively, the album centers on the friendship between 2 vampires, Spook and the much older, although permanently younger looking Mercy. That dynamic reflects the relationship from Anne Rice's novel Interview with the Vampire and its film adaptation. Will said they have a platonic relationship, which is something we wanted to do with this one because our main character, Spook, his sexuality is ambiguous in this. It's about their friendship, really, and giving themselves over and a different type of love to what we've sung about before. Now, the band cites Sisters of Mercy, Danzig, The Damned, The Cult, Jim Steinman's Bad for Good, The Misfits, Meatloaf, The Great Nick Cave, one of my all-time favorites, Bonnie Tyler, Gary Newman, and Depeche Mode as influences on the album. That is a wide spectrum of influences, right? Will said it asks you to do some work as well. Most people don't know what Sanguivore means. The word translates roughly to a mean, blood-sucking creature. It forces you to do some homework. It involves you diving in deeper. All my favorite records do that. I feel like I've already done that. I talked about producer Tom Dagley earlier, but he's known for his work with the likes of Ghost, Royal Blood, and The Cult, to name a few. He immediately bonded with Will over their shared love of Jim Steinman, Bonnie Tyler, Meatloaf, and Metallica. Will said it was so cool to be with somebody who really got all this stuff. He was instrumental. This record wouldn't sound at all like it did, and we wouldn't have half the songs. He really pushed us. Working with the band as a co-writer as well as behind the production desk, Dagley helped guide the band towards the classic metal sound of Teenage Sacrifice and the Misfits-esque Sacred Blasphemy. He was referencing and reaching for things, and they all seemed to be 1980s or very early 90s, Will confirms. He knew exactly what to do. It was very convenient meeting someone like that, a kindred spirit. Talk about the lyrics real quick. Will said, when we first started, we had a whiteboard and wrote out the structure of the record and what we wanted the songs to sound like. But it became quite restricted. If you couldn't get that song right, you would have a dud on the record. You need that piece for all the rest of it to make sense. With the vampire-led concept already in place, Will pushed aside his usual work laptop, instead producing handwritten lyrics in notebooks. He said, sometimes I'd go away and think, I hate that one lyric. I really rushed that. Then I'd go back and get a notebook and write 10 different variants of the same thing and take it to the studio and put them to the band. Between me, Tom, and Ian, who's Ian Miles, the guitarist, at least it became quite collaborative in that way. Got great critical reviews, right? 89 on Metacritic. It was Metal Hammer's album of the year. I didn't see a grade lower than 4 out of 5 in anything that I read. All tracks are written by Will, Ian Miles, and Tom Dagley. So we are going to jump into this thing with an epic 9+ minute opener, Further Than Forever. Been partially written and demoed by Will as a piano-led song with a number of different verses and choruses for years prior to recording this album. After some time, Miles introduced its pedal note introduction, and eventually the song was brought to Dagley who had his own incomplete progressive rock segment influenced by Easy Lover. As a collective, they merged these sections and wrote the remaining song. The final part of the song to be written was its chorus, which was influenced by the great Bruce Springsteen. Just a coincidence, I swear to you, that I'm wearing the shirt. The huge influence, as I mentioned earlier, of Jim Steinman, who the album is dedicated to in the liner notes, really comes through in this song. Will said a lot of the stuff was intrinsically part of our band from the start, and you can hear moments of it within punk songs, these grander moments. But we always wanted to lean into it, and Further Than Forever is almost like a real love letter to that stuff. Somewhere between Bonnie Taylor and Bat Out of Hell, who, obviously both of those things had famous Steinman influenced or produced and written things. So I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. It's going to be important. This song's over 9 minutes long. So I'll be back with you in a little bit. Thanks again to River. All right, Further Than Forever. Before I get into the positive songs, and there's a ton of positive songs, I will say this. I'm a Christian. I'm a strong Christian. Not the crazy people you see on TV or out and about, maybe in your community, who are trying to tear everybody else down and acting holier than thou. I'm a true Christian. I'm not saying those people aren't. That's for them and God. But so there's parts of this song is really blasphemous to Jesus in one part. So can't be on board with that. And the part of her, killing angels for fire. Like, it's really not how it works in the spiritual world, boys and girls. But I also understand, besides the Jesus part, which I can't be on board, the other parts, and it's a rock opera, man. It's a rock opera. And this, you could have told me that Meatloaf sang this song in 1979, written by Jim Steinman, and I would have said, yeah, it sounds right. The keys are what really, like the playing of the keys are really, really, and then the way the guitars come in hard on certain parts with the keys. It's classic textbook Steinman, right? It's classic textbook Steinman. And Will's vocals are fantastic. Just the range he showed on this. I know he's going to show more range on some other ones, but we're kind of just introduced to the story here. But it's almost 2 minutes of instrumentation to start with. It's fantastically done. It's over 9 minutes long. It doesn't feel like it at all. I don't think it feels like it 9 minutes at all. So really well done, but I expect this all to be really well done with everything that I read. Now we'll go to the second track, Cry to Heaven. This was a single. There's a video for it. I considered playing it, but I just want to kind of vibe with the whole concept of the album. But with the album being a concept album like the rest of the band's work, the track acts as the first introduction to the character of Mercy and her bike gang, the Ghost Brigade. Now, this is just what I found. We're gonna. I almost didn't read this, but I wanted to give this to you up front. But it could be wrong. We may interpret it a different way. But Mercy is a troubled teenage vampire who's actually hundreds of years old. She soon becomes acquainted with a much younger vampire, an old man named Spook. The two become close, and over the course of the album, they contemplate existence, life, and death. So like I said, we're going to see what we think this is about once we listen to it. Cry to Heaven, a totally different soundscape, right, for the most part. And I got to point out, like, their piano player and keys player is Hannah Greenwood. So you've got that female voice in there coming in soaring behind him. And that really works for something like this, right? It really works. I thought that was a really big thing. And also on organ, you have Tom Daggledy. And I'm pretty sure Tom Daggledy was doing the spoken part on the last song. But for some reason, I didn't write it down in my notes. I'm almost sure I read that, but so just file that away in your head. I think that's right, but don't hold me to that. But this song's great. So he's taking her, right? He's taking Mercy, and she needs some blood. And so she's going to seduce these guys. It's sexually charged, right? She's hot, I'm sure. And so she's going to seduce these guys. And then when the moment's right, they're done, man. They're done. So it's song and it has this great key change in there. Like, it's fantastic, man. I can see why it was a single. Next up, we have Sacred Blasphemy. It said it was influenced by the Misfits' Teenage Sacrifice, Further Than Forever by Bonnie Tyler, and Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell. Let's go. All right, Sacred Blasphemy. Just saying how she's drawn to it, right? She knows it's wrong. She's drawn to the dark side. It's Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and everything else, all pulled into one. Now, like the line, then after desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin, and full-grown sin gives birth to death. That was really well written, but totally different song structure again. Right, these guys can bring it like in so many different styles. It's quite impressive. Next up, we have the Ballad of Spook and Mercy. It's heavily influenced by Nick Cave, murder ballads like Henry Lee and Where the Wild Roses Grow. Nick Cave has an album called Murder Ballads, came all the way out back in 1996. It is just fantastic, like basically all Nick Cave albums. He's one of my top 5 artists of all time, so let's go. All right, the Ballad of Spook and Mercy. It's over 4.5 minutes long. It doesn't seem like it, right? These songs tell such great stories. The ethereal, like, noise to it, like, it's just, it's just fantastic, man. It sets a tone. More dial back. Will's vocals are so good on this entire album, no matter what style the song is in. But he's telling the story. He's just warning everybody. Here lies Mercy. Like, she's going to get up and she's going to kill you all. Like, she's going to need that, right? Talks about she saw her first victim, a newlywed in a Corvette. She slaughtered the bride and put a knife in her side, sucked all the life from her neck. The groom came back from the truck stop, saw his wife's blood on the seats. Like an envelope, she tore open his throat and feasted on every heartbeat. Like the writing, right? The writing is just really good. Sleep well, my darling, if you sleep at all. The dark days are coming for us, but I'll hold your hand in hell. So the next time you're out night walking, trust me, no word of a lie. Like the sins of men, she will strike again. Every man she sees has to die. Wow. All right. Man, this album is super, super well done. And I wonder from song to song what we are going to see in style. We got Lovers Led Astray. All right, Lovers Led Astray. Hannah's backing on there was really nice. Like the Lovers, they're not going to make it, man. They're not going to make it. This had more of like an 80s hard rock vibe, a little bit of 80s synth work in it. Probably my least favorite song, which is saying something, but something's got to be my least favorite song. But really well done, really well done. Now we go to Teenage Sacrifice. But first, I don't know if you could hear it, but the tornado sirens are going off. So I kind of got to see what's going on. But don't worry, in the video, I'll be right back. Let's hope. All right, it's still storming, but I'm still here. As the sirens are now going off again, I'm still here. We're going to go to Teenage Sacrifice. All right, Teenage Sacrifice. So the protagonist is asking the person, will you be my teenage sacrifice? Would you bleed out forever? If love cut like a knife, baby, so tonight be my teenage sacrifice. When you wash the blood from your hands, can you live without your wife? This had more of like a hard rock 80s sound or even a metal sound. We called it metal, then metal's evolved into what it is now. But it just has that greatly produced thing. I mean, it was called metal in the intro to this when I read about Daggledy's influence on this. But I mean, it was strong. Great guitar work from Ian on here. And also different, except we got a shorter one. We got Chapel Gates. It's followed up by an instrumental that's less than a minute long. So I'm just going to let it play together. I don't know if I should let the instrumental play before the song after it or after this one. So we'll just let it play. All right, we'll rewind to Chapel Gates first. So she's doing her thing, right? And she will sit and wait by the chapel gates. I know she will. She's getting laid, but not to rest. I thought that was funny. She's undead and undressed. My blood was a girl. So and you even hear, like, I guess what's supposed to be Satan in there. How sweet is the affection of others to such a wretch as I am. And we get that chorus repeated that I just said again. So she's doing her thing and she's sitting there wait. So then we get into the instrumental, The Abyss, which is kind of, obviously as a concept album, is very theatrical. So it kind of dials it back down to probably going to maybe, the ending of the story, obviously, with Black Heaven and More Than Death. We got 2 tracks left. So Chapel Gates, I thought, was a good song, right? I almost had a little punkish in there for in parts. There's really just more a Steinem influence song. And what I think they've done a good job on this so far, Creeper, is they can go to the edge with the 2 or 3 Steinem songs, but not cross over the edge. I like Jim Steinem. I like Meatloaf. But Steinem and Meatloaf sometimes would step right up to the edge and then they do a huge leap right over it, right? And just take it a little bit too much over the top for me. But Creeper's done a very good job of just walking that line. And you already see it below. Let's go to Black Heaven. All right, Black Heaven. So Satan's basically saying he's going to make heaven fall and do all this stuff. And, you get that darker voice in certain parts, probably trying to be Satan. And then Hannah kind of singing us out with this almost angelic outro there. But really well done. It is basically disco goth, right? It's Depeche Mode in your disco, singing to you right now. The way they can change styles and the way Will can pull this off vocally is amazing. But I'll get to that. I don't want to get ahead of myself. We got the last track, More Than Death. We're going to sum up this concept album and see if we get a finality for Mercy. More Than Death. What a freaking vocal performance from Will. What a way to end this thing off. The last verse, I'll see you in hell if I don't see you before. I know their love is cursed and I can't find a cure, but I will love you more than death. And Will said this. He said he wrote it when he had COVID-19. He said that song is about giving yourself to the light and about being born and dying, letting yourself go and choosing to be a better person, he says. And that being based around a relationship with somebody. So it's kind of about my girlfriend, but also there's lyrics in there about paranormal investigator Lorraine Warren. And it starts with the line all about all the violence. But it's odd. It's a love song, but in a violent death way. That is a really good way of putting it. But the piano on there, it's actually a grand piano. And it's played in the first track as well by Dan Temenick. So Just fantastic. All right, now we're going to come to my favorite tracks. Honorable mentions: Black Heaven, Sacred Blasphemy, The Ballad of Spook and Mercy. Faves are going to be Cry to Heaven, Teenage Sacrifice, Further Than Forever, and More Than Death. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 songs. There's 10 songs, but it's really 9, right? Because one of them's an instrumental for 42 seconds. Now we're going to get to my overall score. Look, this album is incredibly impressive. Impressive not just because of the concept of it, but the fact that musically they can jump among all types of genres, and the fact that Will can pull that off, and it doesn't sound strained, doesn't sound out of place on any one of these things. Wonderfully produced, just wonderfully put together. Now this is low-hanging fruit to compare this to My Chemical Romance and The Black Parade, right? Because it's a little vampire concept. But I'll tell you what, if I compared it to it, and I love The Black Parade, I've seen MCR in concert. This is right there. Is it a little bit better? I don't know. And I'm very tough with how I grade. I very, very, very rarely even get into the 9 category when it's first a listen, right? I'm going to have to be in a 9.0 on this. This album's fantastic. And I could see how further listens to it, it would just grow and grow and grow. And I can see how it was Rivers' album of the year, but I didn't know what you think. What are your favorite tracks below? How do you rate this album? I'm going to have to go listen to their first 2 albums, man. Creeper can freaking bring it, man. Not at all what I expected. I mean, kind of what I expected once I read everything about it, but I was very much looking forward to this, and it did not disappoint me. So if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up, hit the big red subscribe button below. Give River some love for bringing this thing. And until next time, I will see you.